I used to get drunk every single day and still be able to hold down a full-time job. Pretty fucked up, huh? Hey nobodies, it's me here once again, here with my co-host Mr. Nobody. So one of the things I'm most frequently asked is how I was able to get drunk every single day and still be able to hold down a full-time job. And honestly, it's not as uncommon as a lot of people think. There are a lot of people out there who can do the same thing that I did. You know, I'm sure you probably even work with some of these people. And there's actually a name for it. It's called being a functioning alcoholic. That's what I was for the second half of my 20s. I was a functioning alcoholic. Functioning alcoholic, like I said, is someone who gets drunk all the time, but they're still able to live a pretty normal life. They still go to work every day. They could still take care of their family. They could run errands, the whole shebang. You know, alcohol, just like weed and I'm sure a lot of other drugs, affects people differently. Some people when they get drunk, they're like angry and violent. Some people when they get drunk, they're like, happy and euphoric. It affects people differently. And it's the same with hangovers. Some people get severe hangovers that last for days. Some people get pretty bad hangovers that last for several hours. Some people hardly get hangovers at all. It depends on a lot of things. It also depends on your tolerance. You could be one of these people that gets severe hangovers for days, but once you do it more and more, you build up a tolerance, your body gets used to it, and suddenly the hangovers aren't so bad anymore. And I even know some functioning alcoholics besides myself personally. Like the very first boss that I had at my current job, he was a functioning alcoholic. He would get drunk, but he would still come in every day, and you could tell he was pretty hungover. And he actually retired a couple years after I started working at my current job. And unfortunately, he passed away a couple years after he retired. And from what I heard, alcohol did have something to do with it. I mean, I have a lot of alcoholics in my family who can, still hold down jobs and live regular lives. My stepdad, he used to be a pretty hard drinking man. I mean, he would be like slobbering drunk and then be able to go into work the next day like it was nothing while he was in his late 50s. And I used to be jealous. I was like, man, I wish I could do that. Just people process it differently. And of course, if you're someone who does suffer from hangovers and whatnot, there are ways you can manage that. Like I'm one of those types that gets, pretty bad hangovers that last for hours and hours. So what I would do to help me manage my hangovers is I would drink a shit ton of Gatorade. I had this empty gallon milk jug that I would fill with Gatorade every single day, and I would drink a whole gallon of Gatorade. I used to get the mixed powder, and I would just stir it up, and I would drink all this Gatorade, and now I freaking hate Gatorade. I cannot drink Gatorade at all anymore just because it makes me sick. That's one of the things that keeps me away from drinking is, knowing that I would probably have to drink Gatorade, and I'm just, ugh. It tastes like cough syrup mixed with Kool-Aid. I'm probably going to make a video in the future about how much I hate Gatorade because those drinking years really turned me off from that stuff. But anyway, yeah, functioning alcoholism. It happens. It's more common than you think. In fact, I'll even show you a few examples of famous functioning alcoholics. Let's take a look at the board of cringe. This is a poster, or a picture of a poster rather, of a documentary that came out in the early 2000s called Super Size Me. Now, if you're my age or older, I'm sure you've probably heard of this documentary. It was pretty popular back in the day. But if you're a younger person, you've never heard of this documentary, basically it follows this guy on the poster here. This guy's name's Morgan Spurlock. And basically he lived on a diet that consisted of nothing but McDonald's for 30 days. He ate nothing but McDonald's. And it shows in the documentary how it affected his health. He was like, there's this famous scene where he sticks his head out of his car window and starts vomiting. He was shaking and stuff. He went to the doctor and, the doctor said that he was pickling his liver. Everyone thought that he was like this really fit and healthy guy and that all this crap that he was going through, the shaking and the vomiting and the pickling liver, they thought it was because of the McDonald's. But it came out several years after this documentary came out was that this guy was a massive alcoholic. So now people are looking back at this documentary and, looking at all the things that he went through, the shaking and the puking and the liver issues. And they're like, oh, in hindsight, it was probably his alcoholism why he was going through all that. But people didn't know that at the time. Like, we were so gullible back in 2004 that we thought that Chicken McNuggets would pickle your liver. Nobody questioned it back then. Now, this guy sadly passed away earlier this year. He was fairly young, too. I think he was only like 50 or something. But I don't know if the alcoholism played into a part of that, but it probably didn't help. Here's another famous high-functioning alcoholic, Alice Cooper. Now, Alice Cooper doesn't drink anymore, but back in the 70s and 80s, he was a huge alcoholic. But he was still able to tour and, create albums. There are several albums that Alice Cooper recorded that he doesn't remember at all because he was so blackout drunk when he was creating these albums. Doesn't remember them at all. And here's one more famous high-functioning alcoholic, Stephen King. Now, as you can see, Stephen King and I, we both have sort of the same hairstyle. We both have like the 90s lesbian look going on. So next time someone bitches about my hair, I'm just going to say, hey, I'm just trying to look like my favorite 90s lesbian, Stephen King. Stephen King, obviously one of the most famous authors in the world. Stephen King, he was a massive alcoholic in the 70s and 80s. There are several novels that he wrote that he doesn't remember writing at all because he was so blackout drunk when he wrote them. For example, his book Cujo, probably one of his most popular books. He doesn't remember writing it because he was so drunk the whole time. Cujo, they turned it into that movie with the mom from E.T. So, it was a pretty big deal. If you can get the mom from E.T. to be in your movie, pretty big deal. And here's another famous high-functioning alcoholic, my pet bird, Dusty. Have you been drinking, Dusty? Yeah, you have, haven't you? Don't deny it. Yes, I can. I can smell it on your beak. No, don't lie to me. He's drunk. Yeah, you're awful chatty when you're drunk. So, you see, it really is surprising just how functional and productive someone can be when they're on the sauce. When your body gets used to it and you build up a tolerance, you'd be surprised at what you could still accomplish. Now, personally, I'd never gone into work drunk in my life, but I have gone in hungover, and it wasn't fun. But I was still able to do my job. Now, I didn't mention this before in my video about being 35 and never having had a girlfriend, because I wanted to keep the video as short as I could, but I'll just say here in this video, during the early days of the pandemic, I did relapse a little bit back in 2020. There were a few months where I started drinking quite a bit again, and this time the hangovers started hitting me a lot harder, just because I was a little bit older and I didn't have that tolerance, and there were times where I did have to call into work, and I like I said, it only lasted for a few months. I really had to force myself to stop because, it was really starting to take its toll on me. I don't think I could drink like that today. In my late 20s, I could. In my late 30s, I can't. And I'll admit, there have been a few times over the last 4 or 5 years that I've gotten, that I've had some drinks, and it really just hit me like a ton of bricks, So, like I said, I can't drink like that anymore. But there was a time that I could, and it really sneaks up on you. It's very insidious, and it's not something I would wish on anyone. So, yeah, that's all I got to say. High-functioning alcoholics are a thing, and you never know who could be one or not. And there's a good chance that you probably know someone who is. So that's all I got to say in this video. I'll see all you nobodies later.